celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life with Sterling Fox on AM 650.
Welcome back to the show, talking boating on this episode of Boomer Life. Our guests are from Boating BC. Paul Mendham from Navis Marine Insurance is a director of Boating BC. Tina Moberg-Parker is the executive director of the BC Sailing Association, responsible for everything going on in our province under sail. So, Tina, let's start with you on this, because we've devoted most of our conversation, understandably so far, to our little corner of heaven here in the Lower Mainland and the Georgia Strait. But what about British Columbia? This is Boating BC. Tell us about some of the initiatives going on fresh water around our province.
Yes, we have, of course, many lakes and wonderful sailing opportunities and boating opportunities all the way from the border up to Yukon and including the Yukon.
Mm-hmm.
And about 8 years ago, a lot of local clubs and sailing schools offered programs for old people 12 and over. And BC Sailing started a mobile school with the initiative from Legacies Now 2010, and we put together 2 trailers with sailboats on it and 2 certified coaches that took the trailer from community to community in interior BC all the way up to the Yukon.
All through the summer then, right?
All through the summer.
Okay.
10, 12 weeks in summer, because especially Yukons, they get out 2 weeks earlier than we do from school.
Right.
And we started up there and we worked our way down, working with the local communities. They were the ones that got the kids between 5 and 12 and taught the sailors in the local communities, taught the instructors, worked with the volunteers, and left a legacy behind that the clubs and schools were able now to see that there was a great market for this age group and coaching their coaches so they could run their own programs. And we've had huge success all over the province, especially places like Nelson, Fort St. James. Yukon has now got 3 or 4 weeks. They got their own boats. And it's also on Vancouver Island, but in areas, Whistler got a sailing program going.
Okay.
A big one. From seeing the potential in this age category, and these kids are now growing up, becoming their own coaches within their own local community, creating a wonderful summer job and opportunity, and teaching other young sailors. And in places like Kelowna, that has a lot of boating.
Absolutely.
They have we have another initiative called Salty Sisters, where we have women teaching women how to sail and operate boats, because in many cases it's often the husband who has the boating experience and drives the boat and knows how to operate it, and the woman or wife often are the tag-alongs and aren't as comfortable. And now we are really making sure that the women are empowered. And there's a women between 25 and 65 learning to sail, even though they know how to be on a boat.
Right.
They don't know how to maneuver
There's a difference
it.
between driving or running the boat and being a passenger on the boat.
That's
it's
right.
a different ball game altogether,
That's right.
isn't it? And Paul, you had told us a story during the break that was kind of spooky. And the reason this Salty Sisters program is so popular and so incredibly smart is because, not regularly, but sometimes the old guy falls off the boat.
Yeah.
And if the missus doesn't know what to do, this isn't going to end well.
No. Literally, the boat can sail away and leave the wife's on the boat and the husband's in the water. And if she's not comfortable with getting sails down, starting engines, using a radio, it can have a tragic outcome.
Now, the story, fortunately, that you told, the
well.
woman in question didn't know how to operate much of the gear, but she knew how to work the radio.
Correct.
And she got on the radio, and fortunately, it wasn't too far off the coast, and the Coast Guard was able to effect a rescue. But that's what Salty Sisters is about, though, isn't it, Tina? Is
Yes.
making women independent and able to take charge when necessary.
And sometimes women want to be on their own, too. Have
Absolutely.
all women on the boat, just
Yes.
girls out on the weekend. And it is really fun to know what's going on, and it feels more comfortable if you feel that you can use the boat and get it to where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no limit. We have lots of people with disabilities and in wheelchairs, and sailing is a wonderful sport for all these people.
Because
it doesn't matter.
The technology now we've been able to modify sailboats to accommodate people with disabilities, and some of them are really good sailors too, aren't
Oh,
they?
they are so. We have a class called 2.4 meters, and it's abled and disabled. They can sail, and I don't want to go up against those disabled guys. They're so good. They are so, and these are people in wheelchairs, so comfortable. We have a huff and puff method that was developed at UBC, where people that are quads that are using blowing into tubes, they can steer boats. It's amazing the freedom these people are getting, and the programs and availability. We have a trap seat conception on the Hobies up in Kelowna. They have a very, very strong program at the Central Okanagan Sailing Association where people in wheelchairs go in trap seats and sail Hobies. And they are phenomenal sailors.
Oh, great. I was going to ask you about coaches, Tina, because you were talking about teachers and coaches that your teams have traveled through the province working with in the various communities. When these communities recognize that, whoa, this sailing thing, we could have a program every summer, but we're going to need some qualified people. Do they send their people down here to Vancouver to you for certification and training purposes, or are you able to go to them, or how does that work?
We do it both ways. For the first couple of years when we're in a new community, the volunteer coaches work with our coaches, and they get a lot of practical experiences. And then we have instructor clinics across the province that they attend to become certified. And then we go back to the community and get them certified through an evaluation a year after they've become certified in the first time. But then we have a recertification within a year where they show their confidence in coaching. And that's has been great with developing local community coaches that are loving what they do in their local community and working with people they know.
So you don't have to be a saltwater sailor to become an international competitor, do you? You just have to be a good sailor, and you could have learned on Christina Lake up in the Rockies, or you could have learned out here on the Strait of Georgia. That part really doesn't matter, does it?
No, it doesn't. We actually go to lakes. We go to Nicola Lake every year because it's a wonderful place to learn how to sail in wind shifts. We don't get those small, quick wind shifts happening all the time up at Alta Lake. That's where our two-time Olympian Mike Lee learned to sail on wind shifts on Alta Lake, and that's not a big lake. But when he was between 12 and 15, we spent a week up there working on wind shifts, and he was phenomenal on wind shifts. So there's opportunities in every little puddle across the province from south to
You just have to know what to look for, right? Just to have to have the right attitude.
Water.
Paul, I wanted to ask you, because Tina has done a fantastic job of outlining the training methods and the sophistication of the BC Sailing Association and the coaching certification and training programs, right down to the level of a little 6-year-old kid learning to sail with confidence. How about power boating? Where does the education for power boating in our province come from? Is it the Power Squadron?
A big part of it is the Power Squadron, for sure. They start with classroom courses and teach the operative proficiency certification and take you through that process. They do a little bit on water. Typically around graduation, they'll go out and do a little bit on the water with one of the members' boats. That real hands-on learning to boat, really, it comes from growing up in it. It comes from starting off in sailing school. And transitioning what you've learned in a dinghy to a bigger boat. Part of it also comes if that's not the opportunity for you. The charter companies locally run cruise and learn programs. We were talking about that earlier. That doesn't have to be on a sailboat. That can be on a power boat.
Sure.
You could charter a power boat, get a couple of couples together and take an instructor out and go do a week's learn to cruise on a power boat close to what you're thinking of buying.
So, Tina, even if you don't imagine your child being a sailor, and yet you want to feel comfortable because you got a cottage and you want to do the thing, you want to know that my son or daughter is going to be just comfortable around the water and boats. So to send them to sailing school to learn the fundamentals of being on the water, period, is probably a really smart idea.
Absolutely. They learn about the wind and the environment and the waves in a sailboat, how to ride a boat if it goes upside down, that kind of stuff. And then they can take boat safety courses, which is learning how to drive little dinghies, and all those pieces of the puzzle becomes a confident on the water youth,
Right.
which is an important age where we often have accidents between the 18 and 35-year-old males. You know, too much speed, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And you know, respect. We got to teach respect. We have to respect the environment, and we have to be part of you know, understanding what could go wrong, and being careful.
Yeah.
That it's not too windy, too wavy, that kind of stuff.
It's such an important life skill. You know, we are a coastal province.
That's right.
We have a long
You
coastline.
know, we think of the maritime provinces as PEI, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. Well, guess what? BC is a maritime province.
You bet.
Yep.
We're on the ocean. We have 2 12-month freshwater ports in our province.
Yeah. And fundamental learn to sail skills, whether you're starting off in an Optimist or starting off in a larger boat like a 420, it really doesn't matter where you start. It's about getting on the water
Right.
and starting to get that confidence. You know, there's Sea Cadet programs for kids. There's the junior sail programs. There's a lot of opportunity. It's finding the right opportunity for your own individual needs, or your grandson's needs, or granddaughter needs, or daughter needs. It's about getting out and getting started.
Or learning with your grandchild.
We'll talk about that. We need to take a quick break, and thank you for opening that door, Tina. Our guests from Boating BC, Executive Director of the BC Sailing Association, Tina Moberg-Parker, and from Navis Marine Insurance, Director Paul Mendham in studio. This is Boating on Boomer Life, and we'll be right back.
Canada's only weekly radio show dedicated to the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on AM 650.